Good morning. 2 weeks ago, France's National Assembly adopted a new bill that embraces a definition of modern anti-Semitism. This definition includes an equation of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. The motion was adopted with 154 votes in favor and 72 votes against at the French parliament. As a result of that, a group of 127 Jewish intellectuals from France, Israel, and other countries started a bill petition against the bill, saying that anti-Zionism was legitimate and that criticizing a state would not amount to anti-Semitism. We are here with Charlotte Korczak, the senior educator of Stand With Us Israel. Good morning, Charlotte, and thank you for coming here today.
Good morning.
Do you agree with these 127 Jewish intellectuals that made the petition against the bill?
No, I firmly disagree.
Why do you think their claim is wrong?
Well, they make the claim in their argument that criticizing a state is not anti-Semitism. Now that's true, I agree with that statement, but that's not what the bill in France said. The bill in France actually specifically states that criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitism, and that when we talk about anti-Zionism, we're not talking about criticizing the policies of the state of Israel. We're talking about criticizing the existence of the state of Israel, and that's the difference.
Okay, and that being said, how would you define anti-Semitism and how would you define anti-Zionism, and why do you think they are equivalent?
So anti-Semitism, in the broadest sense, is feelings towards Jews or perceptions of Jews that oftentimes manifest as Jew hatred and can ultimately lead to attacks against Jews or the singling out of Jews. So that's anti-Semitism. It's the hatred of Jews, or again, the misperception of Jews, saying that Jews control the world, saying that Jews control the media, saying that Jews are the ill of whatever time period we're talking about. So for example, today, the argument is Jews are colonialists because today colonialism is bad. And in Germany, it was, we're the race polluters, right? We're polluting the Aryan race because their most important thing was the Aryan race. So the worst thing in their society would be someone who would pollute the Aryan race. In communist Russia, it was capitalists, right? So it always kind of manifests differently, but it's usually the targeting of Jews for being something that's vile in that society or in that generation. Now, anti-Zionism today is pretty simple if we just break it down, right? Because what's Zionism? Zionism is the belief in Jewish self-determination manifesting as a state in our historic homeland, in the Jewish historic homeland, which is now the land of Israel, the state of Israel. So anti-Zionism would then be against that ideology, be against the belief that Jews have the right to self-determination. And that is a singling out of Jews for criticism, for something that ultimately other people in the world are awarded, but for some reason for Jews it's not acceptable. So that's why anti-Zionism blends into this place of anti-Semitism. Now, I do have to say there is one instance, where anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and I think it's really important that we make this clear. There are some ultra-Orthodox Jews within the Jewish community and some that have also been excommunicated from the Jewish community, but mostly the Jews within the Jewish community who don't believe in a Jewish state and are against a Jewish state. But the reason for that is theological. The reason for that is because of a religious belief that they hold that we should not have a state until the Messiah comes. Now that's obviously not anti-Semitism. So that's really the only form that we find of anti-Zionism where it doesn't really manifest as anti-Semitism. But every other case, this is what we're dealing with.
Okay. Do you think that any criticism of Israel is anti-Zionism?
Anti-Zionism or anti-Semitism?
Anti-Zionism.
No, of course not. Of course not.
And where do you think when it crosses the line? When do you think that criticism of Israel becomes anti-Zionism?
So let's first of all, what is legitimate criticism of Israel? Legitimate criticism of Israel would be criticizing an Israeli policy, right? Being critical of, let's say, the government's settlement policy. That would be that would be neither. That would be legitimate criticism of Israel. It's a criticism that many Israelis hold, right? You can criticize a government without any issue. Where it crosses the line, most would argue it falls into the category of what we would call the 3 Ds. The 3 Ds were a formula laid out by Natan Sharansky, where he speaks about how if we either delegitimize Israel, say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, that the Jews don't have a right to self-determination, that will then fall into the category of anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism. if Israel is held to a double standard where we are expected as a country to do more than any other country in the world. And lastly, the demonization of Israel. If old anti-Semitic tropes like, again, Jews are wealthy, or Jews are monsters, Jews are demons, are now not applied to Jews but applied to Israel or Israelis. And so that now has actually been added to the definition that has been brought up by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA, which is a definition that's now is a working definition throughout the world of people trying to kind of redefine or add an additional definition. Because when anti-Zionism was defined in the 1860s by a German, when the term anti-Semitism was created, Israel didn't exist. Zionism as an ideology was only in its embryonic stages in terms of modern political Zionism. And so we had to evolve the definition now that there is a Jewish state and has become the target of anti-Semitism and anti-Semites. So that's how we have to draw the line. Illegitimate criticism in the most basic sense is criticizing Israel's right to exist. Okay. Criticize the policies of the government. Don't criticize our right to exist, because then you're entering into the space of anti-Zionism, which then enters into the space of anti-Semitism.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.